I still remember the exact moment she took credit for my work for the first time. It wasn't during a meeting or a presentation. It was over lukewarm coffee in the break room, the kind that tastes faintly like cardboard and ambition. Vanessa Hale, my boss, sleek hair, precise smile, the kind of confidence that could fill a room, leaned against the counter as one of the senior executives praised her new algorithmic model. My algorithmic model. She didn't correct him. She just smiled that polished smile and said, "I'm so proud of what we've built." We. That was the first time I realized the danger of working under someone who could weaponize a pronoun. For 3 years, I had been the quiet one in the corner of the lab, the data whisperer they jokingly called me. I wasn't loud or charismatic or polished like Vanessa, but I was precise. I wrote code that made machines learn faster, cleaner, with half the power consumption of any competitor on the market. I had no interest in fame. I just wanted to build something that mattered. Vanessa saw that as an opportunity. She joined the company 2 years after me, but climbed the ranks like a mountain goat on caffeine, networking, charming, flattering. I admired her at first. She had a way of making people feel seen, important. But eventually I realized that for Vanessa, everyone was a ladder rung, and I had been placed perfectly on the path to her next promotion. The day everything started unraveling was an ordinary Tuesday. I was debugging a line of code that refused to cooperate when she appeared in my doorway. "Elena," she said, her voice smooth as glass. "You're brilliant, you know that?" Compliments from Vanessa were never free. She walked in, leaned on my desk, and peered at my screen. "This energy-efficient loop you wrote, it's incredible. This could be the foundation for our next-gen AI model." "Our?" I echoed, though I already knew what was coming. She smiled. "Of course. You're the brain, I'm the bridge. I'll make sure upper management understands the potential here." In hindsight, that was the moment I should have said no. Should have told her to back off and let me handle it. But I didn't. I was tired, overworked, and maybe, if I'm being honest, a little desperate for someone to finally notice my work. 2 days later, she presented our innovation at a department meeting. She described it flawlessly, right down to the metaphor I'd used in my private notes, how the AI learned like roots finding sunlight. Everyone was impressed. The VP called it a breakthrough. Vanessa stood at the head of the table, taking the applause, her smile bright enough to burn. And me? I sat in the back row, hands clasped so tightly they ached. When the meeting ended, my friend Jordan from Data Analytics clapped me on the shoulder. "Hey," he whispered, "that was your model, right? You wrote that loop she mentioned?" I forced a smile. "It's fine. She's the one presenting it." But it wasn't fine. Not when my code began appearing in reports under her name. Not when the company newsletter featured a photo of Vanessa beneath the headline, "The visionary behind our new AI platform." And definitely not when she was invited to speak at the tech conference in Seattle to discuss her design principles. Every compliment she received felt like a paper cut, small but relentless. Still, I stayed quiet. Because that's what perfect employees do. They stay composed, grateful, loyal. I told myself it wasn't worth making enemies, that my work would speak for itself someday. Then, one evening, as the office lights dimmed and most of the staff had gone home, I walked past Vanessa's office and froze. Her door was slightly open, her voice low but animated. I shouldn't have stopped, but I did. "Yes," she was saying into the phone. "It's almost done. My design reduces power usage by nearly 40%. The prototype's ready for testing." A pause, then laughter. "Of course I'll send over the specs. I want to make sure the patent paperwork gets filed before anyone else tries to claim it." Patent. The word hit me like a blow to the chest. I remember standing there, my palms damp, my heart racing so fast I could hear it in my ears. She wasn't just stealing credit, she was preparing to own my invention, to legally erase me from my own creation. I stepped back before she could see me, my mind spinning. For the first time, something inside me cracked, something small but vital. The perfect employee had finally had enough. I didn't sleep the night I heard her say the word patent. I lay staring at the hairline crack in my ceiling like it was a fault line inching toward my life. By morning, I'd convinced myself I'd misheard. Maybe she'd said patient. Maybe she was talking about a friend in med school. The brain is generous when the truth is intolerable. Back at the office, generosity died fast. The thefts didn't begin as grand heists. They were quiet revisions. Subject lines swapped, authorship lines nudged. A slide here, a caption there. In the quarterly memo, my prototype became Vanessa's high-efficiency framework. In a JIRA ticket, an algorithm labeled EC loop morphed into VH loop. When I pointed it out, the project manager shrugged and said, "Must have been a copy-paste thing. I'll fix it." He didn't. Jordan noticed. He always noticed. He dropped a sticky note onto my keyboard. "Lunch? You look like you're about to bite the code back." We walked to the food truck that parks behind the building, the wind flipping napkins and whispering secrets. "You heard something," he said. "She said she's filing a patent," I answered, and the sentence tasted like metal. "My loop, my architecture." He stared at me, then at the crowd, as if searching for a camera. "Elena, your devlogs, your notebooks, you've got timestamps." "I have everything," I said. "Emails, versions, prototypes numbered like tiny lifeboats." He nodded slowly. "Then stop pretending this is weather. It's arson." I wanted to believe that evidence would be enough, that the company would care about fairness if handed a binder full of receipts. But then the calendar invite arrived. Executive Preview, Next Gen AI Energy Platform. Presenter, Vanessa Hale. Attendees, the board, the CTO, a handful of venture people who sometimes appeared like migrating birds. No invite for me. At my desk, I opened my personal lab notebook, the paper one, the one with coffee rings and my grandmother's handwriting on the inside cover. Work hard, but keep the proof. Page after page of my life stared back at me. Sketches of matrix optimizations, midnight ideas scribbled at red lights, a coffee-stained graph comparing power draw across models. I pressed my palm against the paper and felt a ridiculous urge to apologize to it, as if I'd failed the thing I loved by handing it to the wrong shepherd. That's when Nisha knocked on my doorframe. She'd been at the company since the first prototype, a principal engineer whose hair was always pulled into a no-nonsense braid. "Walk with me," she said. We ended up in the stairwell, where bad news echoes. She didn't waste time. "I sat in on Vanessa's dry run. She's using your metaphors, Elena. Your measurements. Hell, she even stole that anecdote about roots finding sunlight." My laugh sounded like breaking glass. Of course she did. Nisha looked at me for a long beat. "I've seen this before. Different people, same recipe. Charisma on stage, quiet hands in the lab. The quiet hands leave, and the charisma keeps the title." "Then what do I do?" I asked, hating the tremor in my voice. "You stop being quiet." She paused, softened. "And you lawyer up." I told her about the phone call, the patent. She closed her eyes as if steadying a spinning room. "If she files first under a work-for-hire claim, it gets messy.
You need a timestamp that predates any formal assignment. Do you? Yes, I said.
I built the first workable loop at my apartment before we had a budget line. I mailed myself the code on a thumb drive, certified mail. I didn't even know why at the time. It just felt smart. Nisha opened her eyes, impressed despite herself. Good instincts. Talk to counsel. Not here. On my walk home that evening, the city felt tilted. I loved that stroll, the liquor store with the cat in the window, the busker who made his broken trumpet sound whole, the mural of a girl with copper leaves in her hair. But every color had a film over it, an overlay of threat. I kept hearing Vanessa's voice in my head, warm and reasonable. You're the brain. I'm the bridge. Bridges don't charge tolls unless they intend to own the river. At my apartment, I pulled the banker's box from under my bed and spread my life across the table. Notebooks, dated screenshots, emails to myself, a video of the prototype reading a handwritten digit with a power draw that made me want to dance. I took photos of everything, then backed those photos up in 2 encrypted drives, one labeled Fire Escape, because I have a flair for melodrama when I'm scared. The next morning, I asked HR for the company's IP assignment agreement. The coordinator, a cheerful woman who loved succulents, emailed it with a smiley face. I read every clause during my coffee break, heart stuttering at the ambiguities and calming again at the carve-outs. Inventions developed entirely on personal time with personal equipment, not related to current or anticipated company research, belong to the inventor unless otherwise assigned. The law lives in the adverbs. That afternoon, Vanessa appeared in my doorway with a latte I didn't ask for. You've been quiet, she said. I've been working, I answered. She perched on my guest chair, crossing her legs with that deliberate elegance that said she never tripped. I wanted to talk about tomorrow's preview. It's a small room. Strategic. She tilted her head. I'll give you a shout-out, of course. I always do. I pictured the newsletter, the captions, the way we kept swallowing I like a wave swallowing footprints. A shout-out isn't authorship, I said. Her smile tightened a millimeter. Elena, I'm trying to put you in the best light. Some people just aren't built for the stage. It's not an insult. It's a division of labor. Is that what patents are now? I asked, and watched the smallest flicker in her eyes, surprise, irritation, calculation knitting themselves together. I don't know what you mean, she said lightly, but her knuckles had gone pale on the paper cup. Of course, I said, and we looked at each other like 2 chess players who suddenly realized the other knows the rules. When she left, I closed my eyes and allowed myself 1 minute to shake. Then I opened my laptop and sent a message to a number Jordan had given me. Maya Chen, IP attorney. I typed, deleted, typed again. Hi, I'm an engineer with documentation that I'm the sole inventor of a technology my boss intends to patent as her own. I need advice. Maya replied in 6 minutes. Bring everything. Tonight, if you can. Before I left, I wandered into the lab. The prototype hummed on the bench, LEDs breathing like a sleeping animal. I ran a quick test. Watched the power meter stay low and steady, the way I'd designed it to, modest, efficient, invisible if you didn't know where to look. I put my hand on the casing. I see you, I whispered, which is ridiculous, but I meant it. On my way out, I passed the glass wall of the executive conference room. Through it, I saw Vanessa rehearsing to an empty table, gestures precise, smile calibrated to sincerity. Her reflection in the glass overlapped with mine for a heartbeat. 2 Elenas, 2 Vanessas, 2 futures. It occurred to me, sudden and clean. I wasn't watching a thief. I was watching an editor with a red pen poised over my life,
deciding which parts of me would survive the cut.
And for the first time, I felt something like relief. Because editors can be overruled. Tomorrow, she would stand in front of the board and call my work hers. Tomorrow, I would still be quiet. But not for long. I didn't go home after meeting Maya that night. I sat in her small, paper-stacked office downtown until nearly midnight, watching her mark up legal documents like a surgeon tracing the line of an incision. "You have the advantage," she said finally, sliding a cup of vending machine coffee toward me. "You wrote this algorithm before the company had any claim to it. You have timestamps, a mailing receipt, even emails referencing your prototype. That's gold." She leaned back in her chair. "But gold only matters if you use it. Are you prepared to fight her?" Her question echoed in the cramped space, louder than the hum of the fluorescent light. Fight her. The words felt foreign in my mouth, like a weapon I wasn't sure I could hold. "I'm not confrontational," I admitted. Maya smiled faintly. "You don't have to be. You just have to be prepared. Let her walk herself right into your documentation. Then, when she does, drop the hammer." I nodded, but my chest still felt tight. I'd spent years learning how to survive by being small, by staying polite, by letting louder people take up the air. Standing up for myself wasn't a skill, it was an evolution. The next morning, the company buzzed like a hive preparing for harvest. The executive preview was in 2 hours. Vanessa swept through the halls in a tailored navy suit, her perfume sharp and deliberate. People congratulated her before the meeting even began. "Brilliant work," someone said. "Inspired leadership," said another. She smiled graciously at every compliment, the benevolent queen of innovation. When she passed my desk, she stopped. "You'll be watching the presentation stream, right?" "Of course," I said, keeping my tone even. "Good. I want you to see how far we've come. We. Again." She disappeared down the hall, and I exhaled slowly, forcing my hands to unclench. My monitor still displayed the patent draft Maya had helped me finalize last night. Application number, submission date, and my name listed clearly as the sole inventor. I had officially filed at 12:14 a.m. That meant no matter what happened in that boardroom, my claim now existed in the system. The law moved slowly, but the clock had started ticking in my favor. When the meeting began, I stayed at my desk, headphones in, watching the live feed through the internal channel. Vanessa stood confidently before the screen, gesturing as slides flicked past. My code filled the wall behind her, my models, my diagrams, without a single mention of my name. She described her algorithm as revolutionary, explaining how her team had followed her design principles to achieve results that exceeded projections. Every time she said "I," something hot and acidic rose in my throat. Then, at the 40-minute mark, she said the sentence that sealed it. "And I'm proud to announce that I've filed for patent protection on this technology to secure it for our company." There it was, her confession, broadcast on company servers. I hit the record button on my screen capture software. Evidence. By the time the meeting ended, my coffee had gone cold and my pulse was steady for the first time in weeks. Because now, the theft wasn't theoretical. It was documented. Later that afternoon, I found Jordan waiting near the elevators, 2 paper cups in hand. He handed one to me. "You saw it, didn't you?" "She filed," I said. He grimaced. "She's digging her own grave." "I know." He studied me. "You look calm. Too calm." "Because it's not panic anymore," I said. "It's strategy." That evening, I sat on my balcony watching the city lights shimmer like data points across the skyline. Below, the street buzzed with life. People heading home, laughter spilling from cafes. My laptop rested on my knees, the patent filings still open. I stared at the confirmation line over and over. Application filed successfully. Inventor, Elena Carter. It was the most validating sentence I'd ever read. But validation wasn't victory. Not yet. Vanessa still had influence, charm, and a public image polished to perfection. If I accused her too soon, she could spin it as a misunderstanding. I'd be painted as bitter, jealous, unstable. The industry had seen that playbook before. So instead, I planned. I organized my documentation, versions of code, design drafts, test results. I created mirrored backups in multiple locations. I even printed hard copies and stored them in a safety deposit box. Maya had taught me one thing clearly. Evidence only works if it survives. As midnight approached, I opened a blank note on my phone and typed 6 words. Don't react. Record. Wait. Strike last. That became my mantra. I was done being the perfect employee, the one who stayed silent while others spoke louder. Vanessa had mistaken quiet for weakness. But quiet is just the sound strategy makes before it begins. When the press release dropped 2 weeks later, I knew she'd gone all in. It was everywhere. Tech blogs, LinkedIn posts, even a feature on a mid-tier innovation podcast. The headline read, Vanessa Hale, the mind behind the energy-efficient future of AI. My model, my code, my diagrams, repurposed under her name with the company's branding splashed across every corner of the internet. She looked radiant in the photos, confident, visionary, the perfect face of corporate innovation. I sat in my apartment with my laptop glowing in the dark, the article open in front of me. My stomach didn't even twist anymore. It was past that. There was only an almost meditative calm, the kind that comes right before a storm hits shore. The next morning, the company felt like a festival. Balloons in the lobby, catered breakfast, everyone walking around wearing badges that read, "Proud to be on the future team." My future. My invention. Jordan caught up with me near the elevators. He handed me a muffin, unwrapped but untouched. "You should see what's happening on the intranet," he said. "They just added a congratulatory banner for her, full-screen takeover." I smiled without humor. "I'm sure she loves it." "She's doing interviews this afternoon," he said. "Live Q&A. Executives, reporters, potential investors. Everyone." I nodded slowly. "Good." "Good?" I didn't answer, because he wouldn't have understood. Not yet. By mid-afternoon, Vanessa had taken over the conference room, cameras and microphones set up like a miniature TV studio. She wore a cream blazer and that signature shade of coral lipstick that somehow made her look both innocent and expensive. I stood just outside the glass walls, pretending to check my phone while the PR team fussed over lighting. "Smile more warmly," one of them said. "We want you approachable and authoritative." She tilted her head and adjusted her expression. Perfect. Always perfect. When she finally spotted me, her smile didn't falter, but I saw the flicker in her eyes. The same flicker from the day I'd mentioned the patent. "Elena," she said after wrapping up a sound check, "you're free to join the Q&A session if you like. It could be nice to show unity." "Unity," I repeated. "Sure, why not?" She didn't like my tone, but she was surrounded by witnesses, so she nodded politely. "Wonderful." When the event began, I sat in the second row, just out of camera frame. She spoke flawlessly, her voice warm and measured as she took the audience through her journey of discovery. Every story she told had once belonged to me. My late nights, my testing phases, my moment of breakthrough. Only now she was the heroine. A journalist raised his hand. "Ms. Hale, can you elaborate on how your model achieves this level of energy efficiency without performance loss?" She smiled, serene as ever. "It's all about adaptive optimization," she said, "and how you teach the system to self-correct using residual error patterns." Close enough to sound smart, far enough to avoid specifics. The next question came from a senior engineer on the livestream. "What were your main design challenges during the prototype phase?" That one made her pause. I saw it, the half-second delay before she filled the silence with buzzwords. "Well, collaboration was key," she said quickly. "We built a culture of collective creativity. No single person owns innovation. It's a shared journey." A safe answer, a rehearsed lie. But even rehearsed lies leave fingerprints. I leaned back in my chair and typed a quiet message to Maya. "She's doing the broadcast now. Everything's being recorded, right?" Maya replied instantly. "Already screen capturing and archiving. Keep watching." When the event ended, applause erupted. The PR team congratulated her. Executives shook her hand. She basked in it like sunlight. As the crowd dispersed, she approached me, still glowing with performance adrenaline. "I hope you took notes," she said. "That's how you lead a room." I smiled, calm and deliberate. "Actually, I learned something better." "Oh?" "How to let someone hang themselves in front of a camera." Her smile faltered, just for a heartbeat. But it was enough. That night, I uploaded everything, the recorded broadcast, the press articles, the earlier board meeting where she claimed sole authorship. I attached them all to the growing file labeled Case VH Patent Fraud. I watched the folder icon blink as it synced to the encrypted cloud. Then I sat back in my chair and whispered to no one. Stage set. Because I wasn't just collecting proof anymore, I was writing the prelude to her downfall. The company thought it was celebrating a visionary. They didn't realize they were clapping for the villain of her own undoing. And when the lights dimmed after her launch party, I was already planning my entrance for the next one, the global unveiling she'd been teasing for months. That's where she'd try to crown herself Queen of Innovation. That's where I'd be waiting with her stolen crown, and the patent that bore only one name. Mine. The email arrived at 6:17 a.m. on a Thursday. Subject line glowing like a matchstick. Invitation. Global product launch. The Hail Initiative. Vanessa's masterpiece. My invention. The event was to be held at the City Convention Center, a sleek glass palace that looked like it had been built for applause. Investors, journalists, government officials, and partners in innovation were invited. It wasn't just a company milestone. It was her coronation. I stared at the email for a long time before clicking accept. The time had come. 2 weeks later, I stood outside the convention center under a sky so sharp and blue it almost hurt to look at. The plaza buzzed with camera crews and guests in crisp suits. A massive banner draped across the entrance read, "Revolutionizing AI for a Greener Future." And below, in smaller but still commanding letters, "Presented by Vanessa Hale." I could have laughed if my hands hadn't been trembling. I wasn't invited as an employee. My name wasn't even on the company roster anymore. I'd resigned 3 days earlier. But I'd purchased my own ticket using the public registration form. I wanted to see this through not as a subordinate, but as the rightful owner of what she had stolen. Maya had helped me file for patent certification weeks earlier. Yesterday, the official confirmation arrived. Application granted. Status active. It was done. The law now saw the invention as mine. The irony was almost poetic. Vanessa's initiative was built on technology she no longer had the legal right to use. Now, all that was left was the moment of truth. Inside, the air smelled faintly of coffee and ambition. LED screens looped Vanessa's smiling face alongside animations of my model's interface. The press sat in neat rows, their lenses blinking like curious eyes. I took a seat near the back, slipping the folded patent certificate into my purse. My heart hammered against my ribs like it wanted out. At exactly 9 a.m., the lights dimmed. The audience hushed. A spotlight hit the stage. And there she was, Vanessa Hale, draped in confidence and ivory silk. The crowd erupted in applause. She held up her hand modestly, pretending to blush at the praise. Every movement was calculated, every smile rehearsed. "Good morning," she began, her voice smooth as glass. "Thank you for joining us as we take the next step in sustainable technology. What you'll see today isn't just a product, it's a promise." I clenched my jaw. I'd written that line in an early draft of the project proposal. She continued, walking the audience through the innovation. "Our proprietary adaptive energy algorithm, designed here in-house, reduces processing power consumption by nearly 40%. Years of hard work have brought us here. Years of my hard work." The crowd murmured in admiration. The investors leaned forward. Flashbulbs popped like fireworks. Then came the Q&A. A journalist from Tech World raised her hand. "Ms. Hale, could you walk us through how your adaptive optimization handles recursive error correction without performance degradation?" I smiled. There it was, the question she couldn't answer. Vanessa's lips parted. She hesitated a fraction too long. "That's proprietary," she said finally. "The details are confidential." The journalist frowned. "But you must have an explanation for the efficiency gains. Is it an original algorithm?" Vanessa nodded, her smile stretched thin. "Entirely original." And that was my cue. I stood. The sound of my chair scraping across the floor cut through the murmurs like a blade. "It's not original," I said clearly. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. "That algorithm was developed by me, Elena Carter, and it's protected under a patent filed in my name." The room froze. Heads turned. Cameras swung in my direction. Vanessa blinked, caught between disbelief and fury. "Excuse me?" I reached into my purse, pulled out the folded document, and held it up so the cameras could see the seal. U.S. Patent 982-476C, filed 3 months ago, approved last week. Ownership, sole inventor, Elena Carter. The same adaptive algorithm you've just claimed as yours. Gasps rippled through the audience. A man in the front row, one of the investors, stood abruptly. "Is this true?" Vanessa's composure cracked for the first time. This is absurd," she said, her voice tight. "She was part of the team, yes, but—" "I wasn't part of your team when I wrote the code," I interrupted. "The prototype existed before your department even approved funding. You know that, Vanessa." Someone from PR whispered frantically into a headset. Another executive started checking his phone, scrolling furiously. I took a slow breath and faced the audience. "You've been shown the launch of a product built on stolen work. Every test result, every performance claim you've seen today, those were mine. And as of this morning, my attorney has filed an injunction against the company for patent infringement." Silence. Then chaos. The journalists swarmed, cameras flashing, voices overlapping. Vanessa tried to speak, but her microphone was cut. Somewhere behind her, a senior executive was already walking toward the stage with his phone to his ear, damage control mode engaged. I stepped back, letting the noise wash over me. Vanessa caught my eye. For the first time in the years I'd known her, she looked small. Her polished mask had slipped, and what remained was panic. I didn't gloat. I didn't smile. I just met her gaze and said softly, "You should have been more careful with your pronouns." By the time I left the building, the story was already spreading online. Tech World, Business Edge, and Startup Insider were all posting the same headline variations. Engineer exposes fraud at global AI launch. Vanessa Hale's innovation scandal, stolen tech, live. I stood across the street, watching as people filed out of the building, some whispering, others looking stunned. The air was sharp and cold, but I'd never felt lighter. The patent paper rustled in my bag, a quiet heartbeat of victory. This wasn't just about revenge anymore, it was about reclamation. For the first time, my name, and only my name, was on what I had built. And that, I realized, was worth every sleepless night. By the time I reached home that evening, my phone was vibrating non-stop. News alerts, missed calls, unknown numbers. I tossed it on the couch and stood by the window, watching the city blur into streaks of gold and silver as night descended. I should have felt euphoric, vindicated. Instead, I felt something closer to exhaustion. Victory, it turned out, was heavy when carried alone. The first call I answered was from Maya. Her voice, sharp and steady as ever, broke through the static of adrenaline still buzzing in my chest. "You did it," she said simply. "I didn't even plan to speak," I admitted. "It just came out." "You didn't need to plan," she replied. "The truth knows its own timing." She told me that the company's legal department had already contacted her office within an hour of the event. "They're scrambling," she said. "You made the claim publicly, on record, in front of press and investors. There's no burying this." I walked to my desk and opened my laptop. The headlines were multiplying faster than I could read them. Whistleblower stuns AI conference with patent-proof innovation or imitation. Hale accused of stealing employees' design. Live footage goes viral the moment everything changed. There was a video clip attached to that last one. I clicked it. The camera zoomed in on me standing in the crowd, voice clear and calm as I said the words, "That algorithm was developed by me." Then the camera shifted to Vanessa's face, the exact second the realization hit her. Her expression wasn't anger. It was recognition. She knew she'd been caught. The clip had over 2 million views. I closed the browser and rubbed my temples. Somewhere in that same building, PR teams were working through the night, crafting statements and deleting promotional content that no longer existed legally. My email inbox was already filling with media requests. Interviews, exclusives, commentary. Maya texted me again. "Do not speak publicly yet. Let them move first." So I waited. 2 days later, the company issued a formal statement. "We have become aware of a patent ownership dispute related to the adaptive energy optimization technology presented at our recent event. Effective immediately, Ms. Vanessa Hale has been placed on administrative leave pending a full investigation." It was sterile, diplomatic, corporate, but beneath the polished language it said everything. Vanessa was out. The office buzzed with gossip. Jordan called me, half whispering, half shouting. "It's chaos here. They scrubbed her name off every internal document. Her desk's empty. Security escorted her out this morning." I didn't feel triumphant, just quiet. "Are they blaming you?" I asked. "No one's blaming anyone," he said. "They're all pretending they never liked her. You know how people are." I did. I'd seen it before. The way fear rewrites memory, turning admiration into distance. That afternoon, an email arrived from the CEO himself. Subject: Private discussion request. "Elena, I'd like to meet regarding ownership clarification and next steps. Please bring your legal counsel." It was surreal walking into the same building where I'd once been invisible. The security guard greeted me by name. Reception offered me bottled water. In the conference room, the executive sat stiff and polite, as if proximity to me now required diplomacy. The CEO began with what sounded like regret but felt rehearsed. "Elena, we value your contributions deeply. We had no knowledge of Ms. Hale's actions and are committed to making this right." Maya handled most of the talking. She outlined the patent's timeline, the evidence, and the public broadcast that had documented the theft. She was calm, methodical, terrifyingly effective. When the CEO finally turned back to me, his voice softened. "We'd like to settle this matter amicably. What would you consider fair compensation?" I thought of the years I'd lost, late nights, invisible labor, the countless times I'd bitten my tongue while someone else took credit. Money couldn't balance that scale. "I don't want compensation," I said quietly. "I want ownership. Full rights to my technology. From this point forward, it's mine, not the company's." A pause, then a slow nod. "Done." Maya glanced at me with something like pride. The meeting ended with signatures, polite handshakes, and relief disguised as gratitude. When I stepped outside, sunlight hit me full in the face. For the first time in months, it didn't feel harsh. Vanessa, meanwhile, vanished. Rumors spread online. Some said she'd left the country, others that she was under investigation for multiple counts of professional misconduct. Her LinkedIn page disappeared. Her social media accounts went dark. All that remained were screenshots of her downfall and thousands of comments under the viral video. Finally, justice. She thought she could steal genius and get away with it. The quiet ones always hit the hardest. Each message felt like a small echo of everything I'd swallowed over the years. But the truth? I didn't hate her anymore. She'd already destroyed herself. That night, I returned to the lab for the first time since resigning. My keycard still worked, probably an oversight. The space was empty, the machines silent, but my prototype sat there on the workbench, patient and humming softly in standby. I ran my fingers along the casing. "We made it," I whispered. The monitor flickered to life, a faint green glow washing over my hands. The data streams flowed smoothly, lines of code moving in rhythm like a heartbeat. This was mine now. All of it. No signatures, no stolen credits, no borrowed names. Just mine. As I stood in the glow of the screen, my phone buzzed one last time. A message from Maya. "You played it perfectly, Elena. Congratulations. You turned her stage into yours." I smiled faintly, because she was right. Vanessa had built the stage. I had taken it back. And somewhere out there, someone was probably watching the viral clip again, the moment the thief was unmasked and the quiet engineer finally spoke. If they looked closely, they might notice it wasn't anger in my eyes. It was peace. Because justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes, it just finally speaks. For a week, my name lived in headlines I never asked for. Engineer reclaims her invention. The quiet genius who brought down her boss. From shadow to spotlight, the woman who owned her work. Every article told the story differently, but the ending was always the same. Vanessa's career in ruins and mine on the rise. It should have felt good. Instead, it felt like standing in an empty theater after the applause had died. The stage lights still too bright, the silence too heavy. I wasn't used to being seen. And being seen, I realized, wasn't the same as being understood. People wanted sound bites. Reporters wanted statements. Investors wanted meetings. Everyone wanted a piece of the story, the product, the person. They didn't want Elena, the woman who used to eat lunch alone in the lab while debugging an impossible line of code. They wanted the symbol. Maya tried to prepare me. "You've become a case study," she said. "Every journalist is calling you an inspiration. Every law firm wants to use you as an example of why intellectual property protection matters." She meant it kindly, but the words made my skin itch. I hadn't set out to make a point. I just wanted my work back. Vanessa, meanwhile, was officially terminated. The company's investigation confirmed what everyone already knew. She'd filed fraudulent patent paperwork, forged documentation, and manipulated internal reports. There were whispers of lawsuits, but none of them had my name on them. She'd done this to herself. One afternoon, a mutual colleague forwarded me a news link. Vanessa Hales steps down amidst ongoing legal review. Below it, a single photo, her leaving the building, sunglasses hiding her eyes, her expression brittle and tight. For a moment, I almost pitied her. Almost. Then I remembered the night she'd called my invention our future, knowing full well what she was taking. And the pity disappeared like smoke in wind. In the quiet that followed, I started to rebuild my routine. I spent mornings in cafes again, laptop open, the familiar rhythm of coding filling my head. My savings were modest, but Maya had helped me secure the full ownership rights to my technology. I could license it, sell it, or build something entirely new. For the first time in years, every option was mine to choose. Jordan still called often. "The office is different without you," he said once. "Less tension. More boring." "Boring is underrated," I replied, and meant it. He laughed. "You know, they still use your old code for training models. You're basically a legend now." Legend. The word sat oddly in my chest. I wasn't a legend. I was just the girl who finally said no. The emotional hangover hit around the third week. It came quietly. No tears, no panic. Just a dull emptiness that filled the spaces where anger used to live. I'd spent so long fighting that I didn't know what to do once the war ended. So I went back to the lab one last time. The prototype still sat there, dust motes drifting through the sunlight that spilled across the bench. I powered it up, the soft whir filling the silence. The monitor flickered, displaying the familiar interface. My work, my name in the code header. I traced a finger across the screen. "You're free now," I whispered. Then, after a pause, "So am I." Later that evening, I found myself walking toward my grandmother's old house. It had been years since I'd visited the neighborhood. Quiet streets, porch lights glowing, the smell of cut grass heavy in the air. She'd passed away long before I started this project, but I could still hear her voice in my head. "Work hard, but keep the proof." I smiled at the memory. She'd always known the world could be unfair, but she'd also believed it was fixable if you held your ground long enough. I stood on the corner outside her gate, watching the wind move through the trees, and realized how much she'd shaped me without ever knowing the battles I'd fight. I opened my phone and scrolled through the messages I'd ignored. Interview requests, offers, congratulations from people who'd never spoken to me before. And one message from Maya. "How does it feel to finally be on the record?" I typed back, "Strange, quiet, but right." Her reply came seconds later. "That's how truth usually feels, right after it stops being heavy." I sat there on the curb, the city hum fading into the distance, and thought about what she meant. The truth had cost me years of silence, the job I once loved, and a part of myself I'd spent too long hiding. But it had also given me something stronger, a clean slate, an unshakable sense of self. I wasn't just the woman who caught her boss lying. I was the woman who refused to stay erased. Before heading home, I opened my notes app, the same one where, months ago, I'd written my mantra: don't react, record, wait, strike last. I added a new line beneath it, then start again, on your own terms. And for the first time, I believed I could. 1 year later, I stood in front of a different audience, smaller, humbler, but infinitely more real. The event wasn't in a glass tower or a press-filled convention hall. It was a launch party in a renovated warehouse by the river, with soft lighting, folding chairs, and the faint scent of solder and coffee lingering in the air. There were no journalists, no corporate banners, no false smiles. Just my team. 5 people who'd believed in me when all I had was a dream and a file full of stolen code. On the wall behind me, the projector displayed a single image. Carter Innovations. My name. My company. The hum of conversation died down as I stepped onto the small stage. My voice trembled at first, old reflexes, but steadied as I spoke. When I started this journey, I said, I didn't think I'd end up here. I thought I'd spend my life behind a screen, quietly building things for other people to present. But sometimes, life doesn't ask for permission before it teaches you how to speak. A ripple of smiles moved through the crowd. I continued, glancing at the prototype sitting on the table beside me, its casing polished, its display glowing like a heartbeat. This device began as an idea in a small apartment, built on cheap parts and hope. A year ago, someone tried to take it from me, and for a long time I thought that was the end of the story. I paused, letting the silence settle. But endings can surprise you. Sometimes they turn into beginnings. Applause filled the room, not thunderous or performative, but warm, genuine. After the presentation, I wandered outside. The night air was cool, the city skyline reflected in the black water of the river. My company's small neon logo glowed faintly through the warehouse windows behind me. Jordan joined me, holding 2 cups of coffee. You realize you just did your own launch, right? And no one fainted, cried, or tried to steal your slides. I laughed softly. Progress. He raised his cup. To clean slates. I clinked mine against his. And to owning them. He smiled. You've changed, you know. You used to walk like you were afraid to take up space. Now I build the space, I said. He grinned. Exactly. A few months ago, I'd received a notice from the patent office. Vanessa had formally withdrawn all her claims. No contest, no appeal. Her name, once so shiny and everywhere, had become a footnote in legal history. I didn't feel joy when I read it, just closure. Like watching the last wave retreat from the shore after a long storm. She'd taught me more than I'd ever expected to learn about ambition, integrity, and silence. And I'd learned that silence, when used with purpose, can be louder than any speech. Later that night, after everyone left, I sat alone in the quiet warehouse. The only sound was the faint whir of the prototype running a final test cycle. Its green indicator light pulsed softly, steady and calm. I opened my notebook, an old habit I'd never shaken, and wrote, Lesson 1, protect your work. Lesson 2, protect yourself. Lesson 3, never let anyone else write your story. Then beneath that, I added a final line. Lesson 4, begin again, without fear. I closed the notebook and leaned back, watching the reflections of the city lights dance on the river through the open door. For the first time in my life, I wasn't chasing approval or hiding behind someone else's success. I wasn't waiting for recognition or defending my right to be here. I simply was. And that, I realized, was freedom. A week later, a journalist reached out, not for scandal this time, but for a feature on women in tech entrepreneurship. Her message was short. "We'd love to highlight your new company. Any thoughts you'd like to share about the journey?" I thought for a long time before replying. Then I typed, "I learned that silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. And the best revenge is never the downfall of someone else. It's standing on your own stage, speaking your truth, and knowing, this time, the credit is yours." I hit send, closed my laptop, and turned off the lights. Outside, dawn was breaking, the soft gray before sunrise, the world just beginning again. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like a shadow. I felt like the light.